Welcome back, College Baseball Central and the Weekend Rotation fans. I'm Mark Bell. I'm joined by Jake McKeever, AJ Sessions out today. Guys, we had some freaking games this weekend, but let's first go on to our sponsor, Home Field Apparel. Use code CBC15, get 15% off your first order. They have tons of gear, guys. If you guys have not gone out and bought fan gear yet, they're the place to go. They even have championship gear from other sports. Go take a look. Go buy all their stuff. It's really cool stuff. It's really high-quality gear, too. Home Field Apparel. They also have an app now. Download the app. It's really easy to use. CBC15, get 15% off your first order. All right, we're going to just dive into it. Alex, I'm going to let you and AJ talk about this first one because you guys split. LSU defeats South Carolina yesterday 8-7. I'm going to let you start, and then I'm going to go to AJ with this reaction as well.
I mean, gutsy win from the Tigers yesterday. I mean, Ty Floyd came out, hitting batters, walking batters, just gifting South Carolina 3 runs where they didn't even have to do anything, and they got 3 runs. And, the bullpen, Griffin Herring, freshman, comes in, gives you 3 innings, I think really good innings. And then Gavin Guidry, man, that kid is going to be something special. He was the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana last year. He was not even really supposed to pitch this year. He was supposed to be, a lot of people thought he was going to be the day 1 starter at second base.
I did.
Yeah. But now he's out there throwing wicked sliders and, fiery on the mound. Gavin Dugas, you can't say enough about him. Now, what really is going to hurt LSU after yesterday's Garrett Edwards injury, I don't have there's no details coming out from that yet, but anybody who watched that game, it looked really bad. He came off the mound in pain. He threw a pitch and was in some serious pain, grabbing his elbow. So it didn't look good. I'm not going to speculate on what it could be, but I mean, it didn't look good. And if he's going to miss significant time, that really puts LSU's bullpen in a tough spot.
Yeah, and with Shores already in question too, because they're not saying anything about him either. But if you're talking about Edwards and Shores being out, that's a lot of back end bullpen depth you're losing.
And then Ackenhausen's also been out with a hamstring injury. So.
Yeah. AJ, why don't you talk about the good things though about South Carolina this weekend? Because that's still they won game 1. People forget.
Yeah, we can talk about Thursday where they blew out the number 1 team in the country. I mean, let's not forget about that. It was through the first. Let me do math here. Through the first 15 innings of that series, South Carolina was blowing LSU out of the water in every way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And then they had the bases loaded in the 5th, no outs, only got 1 run across. They had the bases loaded in the 7th, didn't score. And when you let a team like LSU hang around, that's what happens. But I think we just saw that, question marks about South Carolina's hitting in terms of, can they actually do it against an elite arm? And then the freshman, Ethan Petrie, hits a bomb off of Paul Skeens for the first one he's given up all year. And then, the senior, Braylon Wimmer, steps up and hits another one. And it was Thursday's atmosphere was unreal. The weather bumping the game to Friday at noon was tough for the environment because there were only about 4,000 to 5,000 people who were able to be there. Because it's a work day. Unlike LSU fans, South Carolina fans go to school. So,
I mean, it's a tough one. It's a good split of the series. I think it means more for South Carolina to get that 1 win. I wish that they could have played the 3rd game in this series. It looks like they're canceling the series, so it's over now. It's going to finish at a 1-1 split. I think it was big for both teams. LSU needed that win yesterday to really keep it going, and South Carolina needed that game 1 win to really prove that they are a class of the east side of that SEC. People have still been picking Florida and Tennessee, which we're going to go to next. Jake, Florida beats Tennessee 9-3 and wins the series going into today. What are we seeing? I mean, Tennessee just seems to not be able to hit good arms, or is it just that Florida's pitching is so elite?
I think it's a little bit of both. And, we talked all season about how Tennessee's pitching staff was going to be kind of what carried them. But their approach against Florida, it really didn't seem to have very many competitive at-bats. And I think that this might be the beginning of the end for Tennessee. I know that Florida is probably going to be the number 1 team come Monday morning. But, again, you can't lose these games like this. They had guys in position, and their 2-out hitting was just absolutely atrocious for them.
Yeah, they just seem to not be able to get the hits when they need them, and they're not putting together good at-bats. They're just really not doing it. Even in the LSU series where they were battling, they won a game. they really weren't putting together good at bats. They could have easily won game one, and they didn't put together good at bats. They didn't get enough runs in. It was just really strange to see this Tennessee team struggle so much on the offense, and they're giving up a ton of runs to Florida, who has been able to hit this year, but not like this against elite pitching. So,
and they've also,
really,
I feel like, lost their edge as well. I mean, it seemed like last year they were just steamrolling everybody and having fun, and then this year it's just a completely different atmosphere. It seems like Tony V just kind of sits in the dugout and watches more than kind of gets up and gets into it.
Yeah, they kind of keep looking around at each other to see who's going to step up and be the leader, and no one's really done it yet. Dickey's been the closest, but that's just not enough for this team right now. Moving forward, we got TCU beats Oklahoma State. Alex, I know you were keeping an eye on this one as well because this is a big series for the Big 12. They split their series now 1-1 going into today's game. How big was that for TCU to come back and actually punch back and fight back a little bit in this league?
I mean, that's huge. I thought Oklahoma State was going to win that series. I figured TCU would get one. But, that's going to be a big-time rubber match. I mean, these are two of the top teams in the Big 12. And, this could go a long way in deciding who wins that conference.
Yeah, I can't understand Oklahoma State's bats. Some nights they're like electric and they're A+. And then you go see them the next day and they're average. They're just a C+ team. I don't understand it. I'd like to see more consistency from all the Big 12. But particularly if you're talking about an Oklahoma State team that wants to be the class of the Big 12, they need to be more consistent. Moving to another team that needs to be more consistent. Louisville beats Boston College. AJ, Louisville had to win this game, right? They've just been struggling going backwards. They have to beat up on little brother Boston College up there, right?
Yeah, and it's, if you would have looked at this series at the beginning of the year, Boston College definitely would have been little brother. But now it's turned into a very good opponent. That's kind of if we don't beat this team here, then we might be in trouble for our positioning in the ACC. So Louisville definitely needed to win the series. Definitely needs to win the series. They came back to beat Boston College. I think they were down. Was it
7-8? 7-0.
Yeah, they were down 7-0, and they came back to win 9-8.
Yeah,
like that's the Louisville team that needs to be there all the time, and not just when they get down 7-0.
Yeah, it's another team with consistency. They're just like all over the board. Some nights they're really good. Jake said at one point he thought they were the best team in the country, and then the next week they might have been in the bottom 50. It's just really strange.
Tournament the next week, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really tough to see this. Speaking of another team who's all over the board, Jake, I'll let you go on this one. Virginia dominates Miami in another ACC matchup, 14-2. Miami looks good, and then other times they look terrible. Is this more just Virginia getting their swagger back?
I think it's a little bit of both, taking out some Virginia Tech anger. And then obviously, our own Monty was out there throwing the first pitch. So shout out to him, getting a little luck there. But again, as we kind of roll into the back half of the schedule with Miami, is this a team that you want to see in the regional because they've been so inconsistent? But again, you could get them when they're hot. But I think it's really weird how this Miami team will be the number one top 5 team in the country. And then the next week, they'll look, like Baylor or Pitt, where they're not even competitive in these games.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's more like ACC is really good, and so every week's really tough for these guys because every single week we talk about these teams being a top 10 team, and then next week they play like terrible. I don't know, maybe the ACC is just a lot better than people are giving them credit for. Maybe they are up there with the SEC this year as far as talent spread over the board. Alex, when we look at this next game, it's a rivalry series. Oregon beats Oregon State last night. Thursday games got canceled, so they're going to play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oregon wins 2-0. Combined 9 hits, only 2 from Oregon State last night in the rainy, cold weather. What does that say for Oregon? And Oregon's 11-game winning streak now.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon seems like they're figuring it out, and Oregon State seems like they're kind of losing it. I mean, Oregon State everybody thought, they had an outside shot to win the Pac-12, and they were going to be a really competitive team. But, man, they have really struggled to open Pac-12 play. And Oregon's just kind of taking advantage, and Oregon just looked like the better team last night.
Yeah, it just looked non-competitive for Oregon State, which is just something that has not really ever happened in the last 20 years of Oregon State baseball. They really looked non-competitive at the plate, and it was really struggling to find their rhythm and to find their skills, and they're really not putting it together right now. They really got to figure something out here because right now they are sitting in 8th in the Pac-12. When we look at the standings today, they are 8th right now, just above Arizona, Cal, and Utah. And those are teams that, you better beat, and they're looking forward to those games, but they got to win some games against some top tier here.
Mark, I got to say something about Oregon and Oregon State. I feel like rain delays up in the Pacific Northwest almost shouldn't matter. Like if these are local boys, they should be used to these rain delays. I feel like they're kind of the only ones that don't get to use that excuse. Everybody else in the Southeast can use it, but I feel like Oregon should be ready to play in, cold, rainy weather. Like that's not an excuse for them.
I agree. It's just been tough for the offense up here because it just rains and it was 38 and rainy in Eugene, and that's just brutal temperatures. Nobody wants to play in that. It's really hard to get up and get playing. Even in a Civil War rivalry like that, just does not work the same. So I agree, though. The rain delays really shouldn't matter, but they really did hurt both teams offensively. The pitchers look good, and the young pitchers from Oregon have been the key there. Those young guns have been excellent for them in this 11-game winning streak. So who knows what that Oregon team can do. They were my dark horse to win the Pac-12, and they seem to be making a bid for it right now. AJ, Campbell splits with Presbyterian. I know that you have no love for Presbyterian. So this 1-1 split for Campbell, is this big deal? Is this something to worry about, or do they come out and take care of business and win the series today?
Campbell actually won the series yesterday.
Oh, they did. It's over now.
So they did, but it was a closer game than you might think. It was a 9-6 ball game.
Yeah.
Which Campbell is definitely in the running for being the class of the mid majors. I think there are 2 or 3 teams you could have in that conversation. But to drop a game to Presbyterian, I've seen games at Presbyterian. I was one of maybe 50 people in the stands. It's not exactly an environment that you would go into and expect hostility. And I don't think there was hostility. If anything, it might have been a not taking your opponent seriously for game 1, and then they come up and sneak up on you. So, but I think Campbell definitely needed to win that series. To lose that series would have been detrimental, as losing conference series as a mid-major team always hurts, especially to an opponent like Presbyterian, who's not the class of their conference either. Yeah,
Campbell really needed that one. A lot of people have them in their top 16 right now, which would mean that they would get a host. They got to keep winning series like that. So, yeah, I think that winning the series kind of brushes off the loss, but I think it might hurt some voters' minds in keeping them in the top 8 right now. I think that's the key for them, is they're not a top 8 team unless they can sweep these bad opponents in league. Jake, UCLA wins 1-0 over Utah. What is happening to UCLA, and why can they not score runs?
Yeah, that's kind of the million-dollar question. And when you watch them on Tuesday night against Long Beach State, they kind of had more of the same problems where they really weren't having competitive at-bats. I mentioned that Louisville was kind of having a similar problem where it seemed like they were trying to do too much. They were pulling the ball into the shift a lot. And I think that we saw that from that UCLA team, because Utah is honestly a team that I think you blow out. Yes, Gary Henderson can kind of coach it up and keep it close. But at the end of the day, UCLA just flat out has more talent than Utah. And this game shouldn't really be that close. So kind of, I guess, credit to Utah for keeping this game close. But, if Utah, UCLA, even though you won, you kind of have to start, flipping up the switch on that panic button. It's starting to kind of get a little real down there in the Pac-12.
They got to figure something out after getting swept last weekend by Washington State in a 2-game series because of snow. They got to figure something out if they want to compete for a Pac-12 title, because right now they're sitting at 5th, and they're not looking too great right now. When you don't beat up teams like Utah, that does not show me that you want to be the number 1 team in the Pac-12. Moving over to another one here. Alex, Alabama and Mississippi split. Is this any big deal? Does this mean more for Mississippi State or Alabama, or does it not matter at all?
I mean, I think it means something, psychologically for Mississippi State. Certainly, they've been really on the struggle bus, and to get that win against a pretty good Alabama team, certainly not. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be coming into the season, but they're a pretty good team. That's great for their confidence. It's great for that fan base. I know that fan base was super excited to finally get that SEC win, and we'll see if maybe they can turn this into something.
Yeah, I think that it really just shows that Alabama is not a top 25 team like a lot of people thought, and Mississippi State is not 100% dead. They're going to come out and fight in these series, especially against worse SEC opponents. So that was good to see for both, for Mississippi State more than Alabama. I think Alabama really needed to sweep the series if they wanted to put a statement on what they can do. They're not a top 25 team, in my opinion. I'm going to keep them out of my top 25.
But they did lose the second game there. We're kind of dancing over the fact that Alabama beat the doors off them in the second game.
Yeah, 11-1. But
still, State is just so bad. That's what's so funny to see, is how negative their fan base gets, and rightfully so, with how bad they are. So they win one game, and then the next day they just come out and get their teeth kicked in.
Hey, they got to win. So they got to be
That's
happy
all
with
they
something.
count.
They
Yeah,
gotta
they're
keep
counting
building on
wins now, not series and start
build
Starkville.
on wins. Speaking of a team that needs to build on some wins, Ole Miss splits with Arkansas, AJ. Is this just because doubleheaders are just tough to win?
I think it's, I mean, you can look at a bunch of different factors. That series has more to it than just two teams showing up and playing.
Yeah.
Those two teams hate each other. Those two fan bases have no love for each other either. And doubleheaders it's hard to win both games. And it's not like Ole Miss isn't talented. They haven't really been playing up to their potential all year, but the potential is still there. And being around a ballpark for 18 innings, it opens the door for a guy to have a big day, which is exactly what don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ethan Letge, something like that. Leger. Ethan Leger had for Ole Miss last night.
Yeah, it's what has to happen. Ole Miss really needs people to step up. They need to win some series here soon, so they can start today. If they go out and beat Arkansas today, they need that series. Arkansas, though, like trying to make a bid to be a top 4 team. Losing one here doesn't hurt, but if you lose today's game, I think that hurts your chances of being a top 4 team anymore. You got to really beat up on teams that are struggling like Ole Miss right now, especially if you're Arkansas looking at that one. Jake, ECU finishes a sweep of UCF. They did it in extra innings. Is that big for ECU after losing last week's series to Houston?
I think it is, and especially with these series, it seems like it's almost like a momentum thing that it can quickly kind of spiral out of control, as I'm sure Ole Miss can attest to. But I mean, they kind of got to get right quick series with UCF, who is completely going the wrong way after that Clemson sweep that they had. But ECU's had a little bit of injury trouble, but when I saw them last week, even though they lost those games to Houston, I was really, really impressed with their approach. They took a lot of balls to the opposite field, and I think that kind of translates down the stretch. And as we talk about some of these mid-majors, I think ECU is about to go on a run in the AAC. I think UCF was kind of their last roadblock, and it opens up for them down the stretch.
Yeah, I see them making a push to be a top 16 and trying to get into that top 8 seed again. That Houston series really hurt them. I think if they had won that Houston series, that they really could have pushed all the way and done that whole thing. But, looking at it now, it's going to be really
it's
tough.
Not really going to mean that much, I don't think. I think that Ashley was saying that they dropped the series last year, and I think that they're still, the way that their schedule's set up, some SEC team's going to have to go into the jungle and win to get into a super regional.
Texas did last year, just saying.
Future SEC team.
That's what I'm saying. Alex, another series that people are super high on Vandy and super down on Mizzou as of late. Missouri takes one from them, splits. What are we expecting out of this one today?
I mean, it should be a good matchup today. I certainly like Vanderbilt over Mizzou today, but yeah, I mean, Missouri's showing some fight. They came out and swept Tennessee, and everybody's like, "Whoa, Missouri, what is going on?" And then they kind of had some, then they got swept the following weekend, and so it kind of came back down to earth a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they're showing some really good fight against Vandy. And actually, their win against Vandy yesterday was the first time that Tim Corbin has lost in Como in his career. So, fun fact.
That is a good fact.
Columbia, Missouri has been very good to Tim Corbin and the Vandy boys. But, Missouri's showing some good fight, and I expect a dogfight today.
Yeah, I think that the Missouri offense has been the surprise this year for them. I think that everybody thought they had enough pitching to kind of be on that side if they could score runs, and nobody thought they could score runs. Well, Missouri's shown that they can hit a little bit, and they've been able to compete in SEC better than a lot of teams who we've been looking at to be top 8 teams that have not even shown up this year. So I'm impressed with Missouri fighting back and getting that win yesterday. That was huge for them. AJ, North Carolina takes 2 of 3 from Georgia Tech. Is this North Carolina kind of just being adequate because they feel like they haven't really dominated any facet of any game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're seeing North Carolina do more than the bare minimum to win a game, but it doesn't feel like they've truly flexed their muscles. The midweek game of South Carolina, they got shut out, and it was a matchup that when you're facing Johnny Holstaff and you're a good offense, that's kind of when you're looking to put up runs. Their pitching staff did very well that game, but didn't hold the Gamecocks off the board late. It just seems like North Carolina is having trouble playing complete games from all facets of baseball.
Yeah, I just don't know what to take from this North Carolina team. Again, it's like all the ACC. I don't know what team's going to show up every weekend. And it's been really tough to predict and guess where these guys are going to be at head-wise and where they're coming in. I mean, 2 or 3, great for them to take the series, but I think we want to see more from them if they want to be a 16 seed moving forward here. Jake, speaking of a team that's really been all over the board, A&M splitting with Auburn. A&M needs to start winning series if they want to put themselves in a position, right?
They won the series. They had a Friday game that
now?
they took. Yeah, and then they had 2 yesterday. So kind of a definitely a weird scenario. The bats are starting to wake up. I'm not sure where the pitching staff is going to come from outside of Dittmer and then Aschenbach, but the return of Brett Minnick in that Texas game, and ever since then, they've had back-to-back SEC series wins. And it's starting to really pick up for them. And I believe they have Kentucky this weekend, which will be a very, very interesting series for both teams as we kind of see what Kentucky's made of, as well as if A&M can kind of keep the bats rolling, as Kentucky has a really good pitching staff. But again, I think that the pitching is going to kind of hold A&M back this year.
Kentucky's playing LSU next weekend.
Kentucky and LSU.
Then I guess it's the week after. I know that we have Kentucky coming up.
Sorry, I already thought that we've already split 2 series, but 2 of them have already finished. So this whole Easter weekend thing has me in a freaking zoo just looking.
It's a frenzy, yeah.
And all the rainouts have really just messed with it.
It's Missouri and Kentucky. So 2 kind of a very similar teams where they're both playing up.
Yeah. Let's go to another one here really fast. We're just going to go through a couple really fast ones. Texas beating K-State. Is that big there for Texas, Alex?
No, they should win their home.
It's
6-5. They should win that series. Yeah.
Yeah. Maryland beating Rutgers. Is that big for Maryland to get back on pace here in the Big Ten, AJ?
It's big, but it's also expected. Rutgers isn't the team that a lot of people thought they were coming into the year.
Yep, pitching's been down for Rutgers. We all thought it'd be a little bit better. They have not been. Kentucky over Georgia. That surprised anybody, Jake?
No, I think Georgia's really bad, and Kentucky's kind of showing that they're for real.
Nebraska beating Michigan in extras 3-1. Is that big for anybody? And can you guess that they're actually the number 1 team in the Big Ten right now? Nebraska is actually number 1 in the Big Ten. That one actually surprised me. That's why I threw this one on the list, because I was like, oh, it's got to be Maryland or Iowa. It's not. It's Nebraska. Nebraska's number 1 in the Big Ten right now.
Well, they haven't played Maryland or Iowa, so that's probably why.
Yep, they have not. They've only played 4 conference games. That's also why. So it kind of helps when you've only played 4 conference games. And then Clemson beating Florida State. Do we think either one of these teams is actually a tournament team, AJ?
I do not. Florida State beat Clemson to break their very long losing streak that they had coming in. I think this is just 2, I wouldn't call them bad teams, but 2 teams who are not in a position yet to win and compete like they will be next year.
Yeah, it's 2 fun undercards that used to be really good at baseball and are just kind of rebuilding their way back to good baseball teams. So it's fun to watch, but it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of games. One that does kind of matter for a lot of people that think West Virginia is top 25, Kansas beating West Virginia. Alex, what's that about?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. West Virginia has been a really fun team to watch. They've been doing really well this year, and that was kind of an interesting result. We'll see how they respond, but that West Virginia has been a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah,
Kansas sits at 3rd in the Big 12, by the way.
I know.
For anybody that's not paying attention, I did not know that.
Wow.
No,
that caught me very off guard.
And still competing is impressive. Jake, who did something cool this week?
I'm gonna go way off the beaten path. Brian Ellis breaking the single season, or I guess it's career on base streak. He had 101 straight games with reaching base. Anytime that happens, and in front of the electric crowd against Queens College, that was projected around 300. A moment I'm sure he'll never forget, and all 300 people there will never forget either.
101 games. I don't care how you get on base. That's pretty impressive there. I'll take that stat. I'll buy into that one. That's pretty cool. AJ, who did something cool?
I mean, I'm gonna go with the freshman Ethan Petrie in Game 1 against LSU. I mean, coming in, you just get all these hype about he's been the midseason freshman of the year. He's been named to the Golden Spikes Award watch list, and then you go and you face Paul Skeens and take him yard, and then have a total of 8 RBIs in the day, including a grand slam later on. And the only reason you were limited to 8 was because they hit you with the bases loaded, and then you had a sac fly as well. So it was one of those performances where I just felt honored to be able to watch, that kid with all the hype still building around him. And he admitted he was nervous before the game, and Coach Kingston had to settle him down. To go out and do that on that stage was one of the most impressive things I've seen so far this year.
Kudos to Kingston because he was calm. Petrie did not seem to be too big for the moment there, and that's what happens a lot of times with freshmen in those situations. And he was not. It was big time for him. Alex, who did something cool?
So I'm going to go with University of Indianapolis player Brady Ware. So this guy went out. He pitched a game. The second game of a doubleheader. He pitched 7 innings. They ended up run ruling him, so he only pitched 7 innings, but no hit, 11 strikeouts. And then, oh, by the way, he also hit for the cycle. So he was 4 for 4 with 2 runs and 5 RBI, hitting for the cycle while throwing a complete game no-hitter.
He straight up Bugs Bunnied that team. He won all by himself. Didn't need anybody else in there. Throwing the shutout, throwing a no-hitter, and then having 4 hits yourself and going for the cycle. That's very impressive. My cool thing is I'm going to go with my guy at Maryland, Matt Shaw, hitting his 40th career home run yesterday. Big shout out to Matt Shaw and Maryland winning. I would like to see Maryland doing big things. I want to see them as a top 16 team. They have too many fun electric players on that team to be held down, and Matt Shaw is going to be a first-round draft pick this year. So I want to see big things from them. That was pretty cool. Yes, I know other people have already hit 40 home runs in their career, Alex, but it's fine. I'm really excited for Matt Shaw to hit his 40th, okay? All right, let's go to the pick'em. We got a lot for you guys this week, okay? We did a ton of games. There's so many good series. We wanted to get through some of these. What do we got first? Is it BC Louisville?
Hang on, I'm having some technical difficulties here.
No problem.
But yes, BC Louisville is the first one.
Do we have standings that we're missing?
The standings are not quite ready yet.
We're not those standings. We're going to surprise people when those standings come out. It's going to surprise me.
So Noah and I picked BC, and everyone else, you guys picked Louisville.
Jake, why'd you take Louisville?
I thought that this was kind of the series that they used to kind of get right. They get to play a top 10 opponent that I think is almost masquerading as a top 10 opponent. So it's going to be great for their RPI. And I think that they just have too much talent at the front end of their hitting with Peyton and Napchik that's going to kind of carry them. And Eddie King and Klein are kind of heating up there as well. So I think this is a very, very dangerous Louisville team. So not really ready to take them off the wagon yet. Still on them.
Yeah, I am fully on that. AJ?
Yeah, for me, I was kind of torn between a get right series and a series that Louisville just absolutely needed. They've been scuffling, dropping games to Notre Dame, teams they shouldn't be dropping games in series to. And for me, it was this might be Louisville's season already. So I was like, I believe in Louisville still.
Yeah, I was all over Louisville in this one. I think BC's a bunch of frauds. I don't even like them in the top 25, but I've been putting them there because they've earned it. But I'm looking for a way to get them out of the top 25, so this could be an easy series if they get swept to bump them out for me. Alex, you took Boston College Golden Eagles. Why?
I mean, I just feel like they were they're the hot team. They're the team coming in there with a lot of confidence. Louisville's kind of been scuffling recently, and so I just thought, Boston College would be able to come in there and do some big things, and Jake's guy Travis Honeyman, coming in there.
Noah Darling, me starting 0-1, tradition like any other.
He's live tweeting.
This sounds outstanding. Next game, Louisiana versus South Carolina. Now we know this series doesn't really matter because they're splitting 1-1, but it does not surprise me that we were split on this. We think that both these teams are probably top 8, both probably trying to get to Omaha to make a statement. AJ, I'll let you start first because I know you have a feeling here with that South Carolina team.
I mean, every prediction I saw was no one predicted a sweep either way. It was one team's taken 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
And really, I thought that this series was going to boil down to game 3. And it was going to be a battle of Christian Little and South Carolina's basically their bullpen. And if Christian Little can go deep, then it gave LSU a chance. They still have Thatcher Hurd, but he hasn't been the Thatcher Hurd of last year at all.
Yeah.
So it was, for me, game 3 was a toss-up, and I like South Carolina's pitching depth, But I guess we will never know.
Yeah, we'll never know. I know that I took LSU on this one. I thought that the LSU bullpen depth was going to be the thing that could help propel them through this series because I thought games 1 and 2 would be split, like you said, and I thought it would come down to game 3. And I just liked LSU's chance at whoever they threw, whether it was Hurd or Little, and split between those two in that game 3. But now we'll never know. Jake?
I want to say first off that I was very impressed watching South Carolina through both games. I was pleasantly surprised to see how well that they kind of hit the ball, especially Braden Wimmer and Cole Messina, I think is how you pronounce it. Because we knew that they were going to have the good pitching, but it was going to be the question how they were going to face some of these LSU arms. And I'm going to say the bold prediction that I know AJ is kind of dancing around. I think South Carolina was going to win the game today. LSU dodged a major bullet by not playing this game.
Alex, I know you do not feel that way. How did you feel about this series?
Yeah, I thought the loss of Noah Hall for this weekend was going to be big for South Carolina, and I thought it gave LSU the edge in Game 3, not having Jack Mahoney available for Game 3. So, I thought kind of like AJ that it was going to come down to Game 3, and then if like Christian Littles gave us a better opportunity than South Carolina's bullpen to win that game. I was very impressed, though, with South Carolina's hitting, their approach at the plate, especially Ethan Petrie. That was the first time I'd actually watched live a game with him, and man, it was fun to watch. And South Carolina is a team that's not going away.
No, they're not. They really are trying to make that statement. And in my opinion, I think that they're a top 8 team. This almost felt right for these teams to split 1-1 and not have to play game 3 because it really would have felt bad having a loser in this series. But I still think that LSU would have taken the series, in my opinion, but we'll never know now moving forward. Miami and Virginia. Did anybody jump on the frauds? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. You know what? I'm going to let you start, Alex, because nobody's going to take Miami in this series. Virginia, after losing last week, it just felt right?
It did, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but Miami's been so inconsistent. They're so up and down, and I was looking for Virginia to have that bounce back series, and they've certainly been having that so far.
Yeah, I think that it just showed the class there, difference of where the talent is, especially in the pitching staff there. Jake?
I think it was kind of the perfect storm of, like Alex said, Virginia not really living up to their potential last week with Virginia Tech, and Miami playing really good and being due for a bad series. I think this one was probably one of the easier ones we've ever had on this show.
Easiest we've had on the show? They're both top 25 teams.
This one, it was almost masquerading as a top 25 because everybody kind of knew that Miami they were due for a bad game. It's kind of like me in chemistry. Just because I get an A in the first one doesn't mean I'm not due to fail the next one.
All right. AJ, how are your feelings on this one?
I also agree with Jake. I think this was definitely the week. This was the easiest one for me to pick this week.
Yeah.
Just kind of perfect storm. There's not much about this Virginia team that I do not like. And the Miami team has questions, and Virginia team's going to come in playing angry. And I think we saw what happens when a very good team plays a good team. The very good team, just when they play their brand of baseball, they roll.
Yeah, when Virginia gets outs, when they can collect outs, they're a very good team. When they can make sure they get 27 outs, they kind of just kept letting Virginia Tech hang in those ball games and not get those outs, making a couple errors. And now they're hitting again. Look out, Virginia's on fire. Next series here, Florida and Tennessee. A good little split here. Jake, I'm going to go with you first since you took Tennessee as well. Were you expecting a little bit more from the offense here?
I was. I thought that this was going to be kind of a get-right series for Florida. I mean, not Florida, Tennessee. I forgot that Tennessee acted like idiots and put on Florida's helmets last year. So I wish I could go back and change my pick when I found that out. But I thought Tennessee kind of was a worse team that they were leading on. I think that they should have been playing a little bit up to their potential, and this was a series that they could have got it right. Unfortunately, didn't go their way, and I think that it's kind of time to start hitting the panic button down there in Knoxville.
Yeah, I don't really know what's wrong with me, but I've taken Tennessee in back-to-back weekends against two teams that are clearly better than them. I just thought that they'd actually punch back and get a little fight here and then in the SEC, and it just doesn't seem like they have that senior leadership right now. They need somebody to step up and really push this team offensively to get some firepower going. AJ, you took Florida?
Yeah, to me, this was the other game that was super easy for me to pick this week. We've seen a Tennessee team that just been relying on their starting pitching, and it hasn't lived up to what it's supposed to be. And the offense hasn't been. I think it probably would be accurate to say they've been SEC average at best. And then this Florida team with the pitching talent they have, and then the offensive capability they have. To me, this was just a mismatch from the get-go.
Yeah, I looked at this and I was like, there's a lot of good pitching matchups, but Florida's pitching has been much better this weekend, and really all season. This Florida pitching staff is really elite. Alex, you took Florida as well. You just like saying it.
I think Noah just likes hearing me say Florida, but I agree with AJ. They just seem like the better team. I mean, watching Tennessee last weekend, I mean, they had some moments, and they're definitely a solid baseball team, but they're not what they were last year. And Florida's pitching rotation is just, I think, just significantly better than Tennessee's is right now. I mean, Tennessee may have more projectable talent, maybe than Florida does, but right now Florida's playing like a better team.
Yeah, you look at Tennessee, they got 3 big league arms there to start their weekend rotation, and they're just really not paying off currently. Florida's got 2 really good arms, and they've really been paying off. Those guys have won almost every game that they've been in, which has been huge for Florida. So big win for Florida there. They're up 2-0 already in this series, so we lose this one, Jake. Moving on to the next one. Oh, of course, Noah took Ole Miss. Of course he did. Not surprising. He's still in the running here. But, Jake, I'll let you start here with this Razorback team.
I thought that this was not really the best series for Ole Miss to kind of get it right. I know last weekend at A&M that they kind of played a little bit better and just kind of fell short, but I think Arkansas is a whole different animal, and I think they're a top 5 team in the country. And when you're a top 5 team in the country, you go and you beat teams like Ole Miss who are kind of streaking the wrong way.
Well, of course they're a different animal. They're a Razorback and Texas Colt. Alex, how do you pick this one?
Arkansas is just the better team. Now, I will say today Arkansas's kind of lack of pitching depth, and the fact that Ole Miss does have a really good lineup really does make today interesting, that rubber match. But, I still think that Arkansas is going to pull it out.
I got a little worried when that Thursday night game got rained out because it made me go, okay, doubleheader, and then moving into it. That's a tough thing for Arkansas's lack of the depth in the pitching right now. AJ, you still feeling confident here?
Yeah. I'm not worried about this one at all.
Yeah, I can tell. You're just like spinning. You're like, how do I say something positive about Ole Miss possibly winning? It's just not going to happen for you. I think that Ole Miss, they could do it if they come out with the bats, but I really like Arkansas to go ahead and finish this one off 2-1 and win that series. All right. NC State and Wake, this series has not yet started. So they're going to play one today, and they're looking to play a doubleheader on Sunday. Wake across the board. I knew I should have gone with NC State, my Wolfpack. A little rough there. So, Alex, why do you like this Wake Forest team so much?
I mean, Wake Forest is really just – honestly, they're the team that everybody thought LSU was going to be, right? They've got 3 of the best pitchers in the country. They're mashing the ball. They're just – I mean, I think right now they're the most complete team in the country. And so – honestly, this was the easiest one for me to pick this week. Like, it was Wake Forest, no question.
Yeah, they seem to show up every weekend ready to play, so it kind of makes a big deal. They have not really stumbled too much. AJ, I know you've been big on this Wake team since the preseason.
Yeah, I have been. But I still think it's a case of if you put them in the SEC, then we're looking at a slightly different record and maybe a slightly different view of this team. Yeah. But regardless, this is still a very, very, very good team. They're probably, just to echo Alex's point, I would say the most complete team outside of the SEC. I just think you see SEC teams lose to each other more frequently. I just don't think the level of competition with who Wake Forest has played so far this year is up to where a lot of the SEC teams are. But this is definitely a team that is thinking Omaha or bust, and for very good reason.
See, in my mind, when I look at this team, I think that they're almost equal to like Arkansas. So I've got LSU and Florida and South Carolina just slightly above them. But I would say that they'd be right there in that next range of teams there with the Arkansas of the world there in the SEC. I think that they'd compete there. Jake, you like Wake here as well?
I do. Wake really doesn't lose at home. 18-1, and that one loss was a Sunday where they were going for the sweep against Notre Dame. And I think NC State has kind of relied on a few bats that I don't think that they should be relying on, like Kai Harrison hitting over 300. When at A&M for 2 years, he hit around 130. So I think that when they kind of get more into the ACC slate, his bat's going to fall off a little bit. And again, I think Wake just has better approaches. They hit the ball over the yard. Their pitchers throw strikes, which, as we've seen from a few SEC teams, is a hot commodity these days. But the big one for me was Wake Forest being at home.
Not only do Wake Forest pitchers beat up the strike zone, they get a ton of strikeouts, so they got the stuff to beat people up in the strike zone, which is really tough to do at the college level. So it's impressive. Even with metal bats, it's really hard to throw pitches in the zone and get strikeouts. So kudos to Wake Forest, and that staff has been really good, and that offense has been good. But again, I think that they'd probably be 4th or 5th in the SEC if we were looking at overall. Oklahoma State and TCU. This one's split now 1-1 going into game 3. Noah took Oklahoma State probably just because he hates the Horned Frogs. AJ, you took TCU. Why?
Because you can't predict the Big 12, and this is exactly what should not happen. So that means that this is what's going to happen.
It does feel like you're literally flipping coins every single week in the Big 12 series. It's tough. It's really tough. It's unpredictable is what it is. That's what it comes down to. Jake, TCU?
Man, I love Frog Ball. Even though that they're kind of streaking the wrong way. I think TCU, they've had a couple injuries and they're starting to kind of get healthy again. But I think TCU, when healthy, is the top 10 team in the country. And against Oklahoma State, it's such a coin flip game. I feel like just their pitching staff and the way that they kind of hit the ball is what set them apart. But again, who knows with the Big 12? Kansas is in 3rd, so it's just wild times.
Yeah, and Kansas State only loses to Texas by 1 last night. So, Alex, are you as disappointed in Oklahoma State's offense as I am? I just don't understand where it keeps going. It just keeps playing peekaboo on us.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to, them coming into the season, being one of the top offenses, certainly in the Big 12. And like you said, they've been really inconsistent. I'm a big Rock Riggio fan. He's a ton of fun to watch. And I think he's kind of the key for this team. He's got to, I think he's going to end up willing this team. I was talking to Mike Rooney earlier this week, and he was saying that, Rock Riggio is not going to let this team not get to Omaha. So, that was kind of, I kind of agree with him. And that was why I picked Oklahoma State in this series.
That's a bold prediction. I like it. Preseason I was super high on Oklahoma State. I thought that they'd come out and just hammer the ball. I'm disappointed with their offense right now. Now, they still have time to turn around. They can still find themselves. I agree that they're a super fun team to watch. I'm just disappointed in that offense right now. I'm not mad. I'm just a disappointed dad in that offense right now. Next one here that disappointed me badly, Oregon State. Jake, you took my Beavers with me. What did you see in this first game? Not a lot, right?
I thought that Oregon, with their 10-game winning streak coming in, was kind of due to kind of flop, and especially with the rain, I thought that an experienced, coaching staff like the Beavers have would get the guys kind of stay focused. But again, weird things happen in rain delays, and I think Oregon State, they're not the team that we had last year, and I think I'm still kind of holding on for them to kind of figure it out, almost like A&M has the last 2 weeks. But I still kind of like Oregon State, and as their slate kind of gets a little bit easier after this weekend at Civil War, I think that they'll be good, but I don't see them winning both these games.
Yeah, it's really going to take a big effort, and the offense has just not been there. They took 2 of 3 last weekend from Washington, which felt a lot like it was going to jumpstart their season for them and get them going here in the Oregon series. And then to get 2 hits last night and not score, that was just tough. AJ, I know you took Oregon in this one. Did you just like them coming in with that 10-game winning streak, or do you think they're a better team overall?
It's hard to say better team, but they've definitely been playing like it. I mean, coming in with a 10-game winning streak, and then, Oregon State has been struggling to get much of anything going consistently, it feels like, this entire year. So in a rivalry series like this, to go with the hotter hand is probably the safer pick. And I just thought that Oregon was playing better. I think Oregon State has more question marks at the moment, and they can get it figured out at the flip of a switch. That's the beauty of Oregon State baseball. But so far, I haven't seen that switch flipped.
Yeah, if they go out and score runs today, then they're right back in the series. But if they come out with the same offense approach and can't get anything going, I watched this Oregon Duck team play University of Portland, who took 2 of 3 from A&M earlier this year, Jake. And then when I looked at them, this Oregon team can hit. They can play. They got pitching. They got defense. I'm really surprised as to their lack there. I'm hoping that Oregon keeps getting the boost. If they're going to keep winning these games, I hope that they're going to keep getting that boost because they are a good baseball team. I think that they're just not a blue blood team in the Pac-12, and so people are writing them off as being not elite. And I think that they could get to that elite status if they keep winning. Alex, you took Oregon as well. Why?
Yeah, I think for me it was just I just think Oregon's just playing better baseball right now. I mean, Oregon State, like everybody's kind of been saying, they've just been really flat. This part of the season, Trill's trying to figure it out, and Oregon seems to have figured it out and found something. So.
Yeah, the young arms, they lost 2 of their 3 weekend rotation guys before the season even started in the preseason there. And then Oregon has come out with all these freshmen and newcomers, and they've been really good. So it's good to see pitching at Oregon. I would like to see Oregon State punch back and get a little bit of offense today. But, my favorite saying, punch back. I'd love to see it, though, today. Last series here we got picked, Rutgers and Maryland. Everybody took Maryland. I thought this would be a little bit tougher. Man, AJ, Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, like I alluded to earlier, I think Maryland's just a better team. I think Rutgers isn't who we thought they were. And to me, this was it's always difficult to sweep a conference series. So a 2 out of 3 here wouldn't surprise me, but I'm comfortably expecting Maryland to win this series.
Okay. All right. Jake?
I was expecting kind of more of the same. I think if this was the Rutgers team that everybody thought that they were going to be, this would be a good series, but they haven't been. And time again, I've tried to jump on them, and I've been burnt one too many times, so I was sticking with Maryland here.
Yeah. Alex, easy on Maryland again?
Yeah, I mean, Maryland and Iowa are really the class of the Big Ten, and it's just kind of them and then everybody else.
Yeah, I think I took Maryland here. Everybody knows my love for Maryland this year. I really picked them to do big things. I think this is the start of them to get back in that top 16 talk and get into host. Moving on to our next one, we got Southern Miss and Old Dominion. I know a lot of people are wondering why we're picking these games. Listen, there's a lot of good games that are in non-Power 5 conferences. Go out there and explore some baseball. But Alex, you got who you took there? You took Southern Miss?
Yeah, I took the Golden Eagles. I have a lot of respect for what they've got, that program they've got over there, especially after what happened in the regionals last year. But Tanner Hall is a dude for them on the mound, and they're a really good team, and so that was what I went with.
Yeah, AJ.
Yeah, I mean, this is a matchup of sneakily one of the most prolific offenses in the nation behind Old Dominion, and a guy like Tanner Hall and a very good pitching staff for Southern Miss. And I'm still of the opinion that good pitching beats good hitting when good pitching pitches well, which is the important part. And I think we saw that in game 1. But, of course, Tanner Hall can't throw all 3 games. So I was kind of throwing my basically just trying to pick that I think Southern Miss is going to be able to slug their way to 1 victory to close out the series.
Yeah, Old Dominion's a big offense. Jake, is that why you took them, that offense power versus power here?
That is why, and obviously I had them dropping Friday against Tanner Hall just because he's such a class above everybody else in the Sun Belt. But I really liked Old Dominion's chances Saturday, Sunday, especially with their lineup, especially with the rain delay. I thought that this one might have had a potential to go into a doubleheader, which again I think plays into Old Dominion. They're up 4-2 in the 5th here, so it's looking like a Sunday split, and I feel really good with Old Dominion's chances. I know last week on Sunday they really didn't play very good, but Old Dominion is a Sunday team.
Yeah, I liked Southern Miss to take 2 out of 3. I thought Old Dominion would really hit their way into 1 win here. They are a good team. They're just not quite Southern Miss right now. Moving on to our really fun one here, Abilene Christian and Sam Houston State. This one was oh my God, those logos are so good. This might be an all logo matchup here. I absolutely love this. Alex, you took Sam Houston?
Yeah, I saw them play against LSU in Round Rock. Now they got housed by LSU, but a lot of teams get housed by LSU, so that's not something to be disappointed about, but they are a really good offensive team. They can really hit. And, they went out and beat Grand Canyon, gave Grand Canyon their first WAC series loss in like 3 years. And now Grand Canyon has since dropped another series, but, they were the first ones to do it. And so I just thought they were going to mash against Abilene Christian.
AJ, Sam Houston.
Yeah, for me, this is two teams that I really don't get to see very often, so I kind of have to go based off of stats and then gut feel. And it's just hard for me to pick against Sam Houston with that, program's history. ACU, I feel like they're definitely a good program. Don't get me wrong; there are not a lot of teams who want to play them, especially a midweek, power conference opponent. They would not want to match up with ACU, but there's just I believe it's going to be a 2 or 3 deal, and we're probably going to see a lot of runs.
Yeah, these are two very good teams. I think Jake and I both talked about how we think one of these two teams probably wins the conference. Jake, you took Abilene Christian just like I did.
I did. This is going to be the game that I'm actually going to get to go see today and tomorrow. We got 2 today and then 1 tomorrow. Honestly, I'm really excited to see ACU. I watched them a little bit against Baylor, but from an all-time name team, ACU might have it. Tanner Tweedit, Crew Park, Brash Randall, Holden Rock, just a ton of great names. They bang the ball around the yard, which I think is great in kind of these rain delay games, because that's almost half the battle, I think, is, putting the ball in play and making the fielders make the plays, which is easier said than done, especially in a turf rain. And I thought Sam Houston kind of already used their one good series against Grand Canyon, and ACU, I think, is where they kind of take over in the WAC. And again, as Mark kind of alluded to, this is going to be 1 or 2 teams in the tournament. And if either of these teams make it, I really don't want them in my regional.
Yeah, I love Abilene Christian here. I think that they just can hit the ball. I think that they can mash with Sam Houston. I believe they're a slightly better team, just a slight edge right now. So I'm going to take Abilene Christian. AJ, let's get to some questions here about overall. Which team is actually a contender in the ACC? Is there one, or are we just talking about a lot of teams that are just average?
I think you can look at 2 contenders, and I think it's solidly number 1 and then number 2. For me, Wake Forest is in the driver's seat, just with that pitching staff. We talked about it at the beginning during our ACC season preview, but Wake Forest is kind of the only team in the ACC with a complete pitching rotation and a good offense. It seems like a lot of teams in the ACC just have the offense. To me, Wake Forest is, like I said earlier, the most complete team not in the SEC. And then number 2 for me is Virginia. I think they just have the ability to pitch well, which they have done multiple times this year. And then the offense is one of the most prolific in the country as well. So for me, the 2 contenders that I can safely say will be there at the end of April are Wake Forest and Virginia. Outside of that, who knows? There's always going to be a random team that you look and they're 2 games behind with a series against one of those 2 guys, and you're like, how did they get here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, North Carolina feels like that third team right outside the bubble right there. They have enough offense. They have some pitching. But I'm with you. I think Wake and Virginia are really the 2 teams to look for in the ACC moving forward as far as teams to really have a chance of going to Omaha. Alex, what 2 SEC teams do you see not making the conference tournament? I know this is a big deal because those 2 teams probably don't get in the tournament, whereas almost everybody else that's in those top 12 could make the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, there's SEC has 12 teams that go to their conference tournament, and out of the 14, but the 2 that I see that don't make it, I mean, Georgia just looks so bad. They're just not a good baseball team right now. And then Mississippi State, even though I think they're starting to kind of figure some things out, I think they're just going to run into a math problem because they lost so many games to start SEC play. And they've got still some big series coming up on their schedule, and they'll still got to play LSU, and they still got to play some of the bigger teams on their schedule. So, yeah, I think Mississippi State and Georgia are going to be the 2 that get left out.
So Mississippi State, again, that will be just detrimental to Mississippi State fans after winning a title. But, I mean, what are you going to do? Georgia has been really struggling. I agree. I think that they're definitely the team out, and I think people thought Missouri would be the other team out, but they seem most likely in that tournament now. Jake, what is the conference that nobody's talking about that really is a great baseball conference right now?
So I kind of am going to interpret this two different ways, and I'll give you two different conferences. From a team standpoint, Conference USA is the best one no one's talking about. UTSA, Dallas Baptist, Charlotte, even Rice, Louisiana Tech to some extent. Every single weekend, as long as you avoid kind of the bottom three in that division, it seems to be an exciting weekend. And then from a conference coming down the stretch standpoint, the Horizon League, Northern Kentucky, Wright State, Oakland, all within a game of each other, all have RPIs in the high 200s. Wright State, they've kind of been the team, the class of the Horizon League. But again, these are going to be teams that play the 1s, 2s, and 3s. And as we come down the stretch, this is what we're going to see. Oakland, I'm not sure. I haven't got a chance to watch them, but I know Michigan was really excited about their home opener, enough so to kind of drop Texas A&M from it. So I guess this Oakland team must be really good.
They can't be that good. They're in the Horizon. But just saying, that's an interesting take, Jake. I like it. I do love Conference USA. I think that there's 4 or 5 teams that you really don't want to play right now, and that's for anybody. They're not going to get 4 or 5 teams in the tournament, obviously, but there's 4 or 5 teams that you don't want to play right now.
And you could talk your way into any of those 4 or 5 teams as well with what we see kind of
100.
like the stretch. They're not obviously all going to make it, but I think that the team that comes out of that is going to be really, really competitive and battle tested.
Fair. Alex, best rivalry in college baseball?
Best rivalry in college baseball. I'm going to have to say Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I mean, those two fan bases really hate each other, and it's just a ton of fun whenever they get together. First of all, both of their ballparks are awesome, and so whichever ballpark it's at is just a ton of fun to watch. Great environment.
Yep, I agree. I think that one is up there. It's in the top 5 at least. If you don't have them in the top 5, you're lying to yourself. Jake, best rivalry?
I was going to say Ole Miss in the weather, but it might be South Carolina in the weather this week. But in all seriousness, I would say Texas A&M, Arkansas. I know that one's not really talked about as much, but these are two fan bases that really don't like each other. They're usually around the same area in the SEC play, obviously, so there's been some seasons where A&M's flopped. But Arkansas A&M is usually kind of a good barometer for both series, and both of these fan bases just absolutely despise the other one.
Yeah, they do not like each other. That is a fair point. People don't think about it necessarily as a rivalry, but they hate each other, so that's a big part of it. AJ, best rivalry?
I'm going to go with the least surprising pick that anyone's expecting from me, South Carolina Clemson.
Yeah.
It is 2 programs who have not only hate each other, but met in Omaha on the biggest stages. And what I truly, truly love about that series is you play a home neutral site and another away game. So you get the entire state of South Carolina involved, which there's no major professional teams in South Carolina. So this is, for most of the state, their Super Bowl. And to go and have a neutral site game and then give each team a home game is probably the most fair way to conduct a rivalry. So it gets the entire state involved, and it's a state where it's hard pressed to find someone who cares about baseball who doesn't have an opinion one way or another on that series.
Yeah, they all take one side or the other of that coin. It's pretty good season series there. I'm going to go with an old one that people don't really think about anymore because both teams haven't been that great lately. Arizona and Arizona State. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, those two teams were battling every single time they played each other, and they were battling to see who was going to be the Pac-12 champion or Pac-10 champion at the time, and go to Omaha because those were 2 great rivalry teams that loved playing each other, 2 super powerhouse teams. They really have lost that luster as of late. My other one was going to be Texas versus any other team in Texas because that seems to be a rivalry for every single time they play Texas. They're like, oh, it's a rivalry. Well, Texas can't have 9 rivals, but I guess they do because everybody hates Texas. Anyway, anything else to add, guys? Alex?
Yeah, just be on the lookout for my conversation I had with Mike Rooney. I'll be posting that video later today, so catch that on the YouTube channel.
Yep, Alex got to have a great interview with Mike Rooney. Can't wait to get that out. Can't wait to see that one. AJ, anything to add?
Watch out for Cal State Fullerton. I know before the year that was kind of my long shot pick to do something, and they're up towards the top of the Big West right now with the chance to really take a hold of that conference if they can win the series today.
Yep, they've looked really good this year. Jake?
Marshall and I are going to be doing the A&M series breakdown tonight with the kind of doubleheader yesterday. So be on the lookout for that on the Twitter. And then follow the TikToks. We're going to be doing a lot of recaps on there. So if you miss any of the games, we'll give you a quick rundown of them. So follow the TikTok at College Baseball Central.
Perfect. Sounds great. Go watch the Oregon State series tonight, guys, at 3 o'clock. Thanks for joining us again. Mark Garland, AJ Sessions, Alex Day, Jake McKeever. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next Saturday.